Hey team, Glenn and Mili here. Welcome back to the Building Better Humans Project podcast. It is Mayhem Monday, which means that, as always, I've got the omnipresent Mili Mayhem Saul here.
Hello.
I had to Google omnipresent on the way here.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means.
It means everybody knows.
Oh, okay, cool.
So we're going to continue our kick along with lessons learnt first up. And Mili's got a couple that she'll read out from other people as well. But my lessons learnt for this week is... we had an incident with the neighbours, and I'm not going to go into the incident because it's on TikTok, and so you can go and watch the video on TikTok. Now, I don't do a lot on TikTok, but on Instagram and TikTok, I put up a lot of positives, and this is my lesson learnt for the week. My main lesson is that people love drama because I just do personal development reels or TikToks, and they'll get... a good one might get 2,000 views. Mostly they're sort of 800 or 1,000 views. I'll get 10 or 20 likes. And I think it's really good content, short form. It's less than a minute. This video I did about everything that happened this night in this parking dispute with our neighbours, people across the road who we don't know, it was 9 minutes long. And when I put it up, TikTok said this will be not recommended to to new followers or people that don't follow you because it's over 3 minutes. So I expected it not to get much. You said to me, people love a story and they love drama. This thing so far is at 44,000 views.
Hectic.
Over 200 comments. People have blown up and are arguing with each other. There's arguing about, there's your side of the street and their side of the street. And my belief is there's no side of the street.
Yeah,
the street's just the street.
just hell conflicted about sides of streets and
people are getting attacky.
wild.
Yeah, people that don't know us. And because it mentions me being a nurse in there, which I'm not anymore and haven't been for over a decade, talks about the toxic environment for nurses and that we all uphold in our workplace. It was wild. So my lesson learned is that people love drama more than they love the positive stuff. So if you were just trying to get views and likes on Instagram and TikTok, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, you'd put up story times about all your dramas all the time.
I have to make up some more drama stories now.
Don't, because then people will be like, oh my God, so much conflict.
What are your lessons learned?
I learned that magpies eat other animals.
Oh, really?
Like as in insects.
Oh, okay.
But they'll also hack at a dead animal.
Yeah.
And I only learned that because we feed the magpies bread. And then this morning I tried to feed them fruit and they didn't touch the fruit.
They weren't having it.
I know. And they were like, can you send him out? Because what is this? Anyway, and because one of the kids that I was working with was like, you can't feed him bread. It's not good for him. And she's like 8. And I was like, whatever. And I looked it up and you actually can't feed him bread. So we need to stop feeding him.
Can't or shouldn't?
Well, shouldn't, but also can't because they can't digest it well. So it's not good for them. And also it makes them a bit lazy when you keep feeding them. So they don't want to go and do their own thing in the wild. So
I started feeding the magpies because my theory is that they will be less likely to attack us, which is true.
And I've been attacked.
But we've
on my run
since found out that they have facial recognition.
Yeah, because someone put in here, crows hold grudges. And I was like, oh my God.
That's right. Yeah, that was an interesting fact that someone sent us.
Yeah. Because we put an NGL out for what you've learned and someone put in crows hold grudges. And I was like, that's hilarious. And then I looked it up and you're like, do magpies hold grudges? And they actually do. They've got facial recognition.
So then now they're not attacking us.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Anyway, I've been feeding them bread for a while and there's a couple that will actually take it out of my hands.
Yeah,
so.
They're not with me. They're not at that stage with me yet. Yeah. But they do, you'll see them fly down from wherever they are to come and get the bread. So we'll change. Should we catch some insects or we're not going that far?
Not going that far.
Okay,
I wasn't birdseed. What other people's lessons learned?
Other people's lessons learned.
Well, there was a couple actually that we were going to share one each around our last podcast not our last one, but the last one that went to air as the time we record this, which is around feelings.
Yeah. I thought I'd share these ones first though, because we'll just get them out of the way.
Yeah, cool.
I already shared this on my socials, but I learned that Glenn thinks thumb in bum is a common saying, and I didn't think that it was, but so many people messaged me and they're like, yeah, it is. It is in the army. Fine.
It was common in the army when you were just sitting around doing nothing or weren't thinking. Like, why would you have done that? And they'll come up to you and go, when you're young soldiers, young diggers, you're just walking around with your thumb in bum, mind in neutral.
Someone messaged me regarding the neighbour, and they wrote, just stick your thumb in his bum. And I'm like, you can't say that.
We might never get rid of him.
I learned, so this other one, I've learned to stand up for myself at work, at home, with friends. I've always tried to please people. After 40 years of living, I just got sick of being a pushover. I've pissed a lot of people off, but I just don't care anymore. P.S. I love you. You're such a strong woman. You make me feel like we girls can do anything. We need more strong women in this world. I just wish I hadn't waited 40 years to stand up for myself. Love it.
That was nice.
Love it.
We actually had a good experience recently where we went out and a couple of different women came up to you and said, one was, we were walking through some shops to get to the restaurant and said, I love your outfit or something. And then there was another girl somewhere, but it's quite uncommon.
Yeah,
sadly. So it's nice to hear women supporting women like that.
Yeah, but also it's really nice that like she learned and she finally decided that she's going to stand up for herself.
Yeah, and I don't care if you're 40, 50 or 60.
Yeah, and you stop being a pushover, you know. Yeah, because people will take the piss. They will see that and they'll run with it. Like I've learned also another thing that I'm learning is that you could be the nicest person ever with the best possible intentions for other people, and you could do things so selflessly, and you'd be the perfect target for somebody who is using people, who is looking to use people. And you think like, over my whole life, I've been so good. Like I've tried to be so good to all these people, and I've done it with no expectation of anything in return. So why do I keep getting shit on? Like, what is it that I'm doing that, you know? And I think that it's because you attract these sort of people. They see it in you. They're like, oh, we're going to be able to step on her because she's a little bit of a pushover. And I hate that word because we're not trying to be a pushover. We're just trying to be a good person. But people will use that and abuse that.
Maybe they see it as a weakness as they're in.
Exactly. So I'm happy that she's learned to stand up for herself.
I can't imagine a time in your life where you're a pushover.
Yeah.
Like that's not really your personality.
No, but I guess people would see that because I do look at things and go, that doesn't really bother me that much, so I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah. And you're someone that definitely is communal minded, as in if you've got something and someone else wants it, you'll give it to them.
Yeah. Even like, anyway.
And that was part of an episode we did a few weeks back, obviously with the athlete and stuff, where that's happened to us a few times. But I never want to get to the stage where you become bad people.
No.
And start to doubt everyone. So it's a fine line. You've got to work out how to find your space in all of that.
And I'm positive that we're going to find, and it might take years and years, and even for this person, it might take years and years, but you'll find that circle of people who will see you for who you are and not take the piss. Yeah. This other one, what I've learned this past week, my father was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. Sorry to hear. His last day could be within 1 to 6 months. His diagnosis has taught me, don't cry, to live each day with intention like tomorrow may not arrive.
There's a positive to that too, is even in that negative situation is hopefully, because I got that message as well, and it's hopefully she can take on board to live her life fully. So that was what the whole Not Dead Yet was about. It was about, initially it started about living your life in honour of people that didn't get to live a full life, or people that are close to you that aren't here anymore, or that sort of thing. So if there's a positive around death, and we all have to experience the death of people around us at some point, the positive that she's taking out of that is to live your life like it matters, because it does. And I don't think there's ever a time where it's too late to learn that.
Yeah. And then we got Crow's Hole grudges. And then this one, which I've seen all over TikTok, that there may be a serial killer loose on the Goldie because all those bodies were found. But they're like treating them as non-suspicious, but who knows? Yeah,
I have actually, was it 4 or 5 bodies? That's crazy.
Something like that. So. And then the last one, I've learned that playing cards with your partner is actually so much fun. We've been taking cards to our coffee dates and it's a vibe. Thanks, you two. Because we love playing cards. We play cards everywhere that we go. Coffee, dinner, nice breakfast, nice lunch, wherever.
Yes.
And yeah, people will look at us weird, or some people will laugh or whatever. It's cool. We just like doing it.
Let's talk about the feelings episode.
Okay.
And we're recording these episodes a little bit in advance because I'm about to go to Kokoda and Mount Kilimanjaro. So we need to get a bit ahead. So that was a couple of weeks ago as people are listening. But we've released it this week that we're recording this. And so there's been a lot of bouncing around feedback. There's a comment on my Facebook about it that I think you were going to read out.
Yeah.
I had this one that came through. Let me find this. It said, compassion and empathy is in the soul of kind human beings. The ability to feel is strength, not weakness. The inability to show emotion, the hard shell, is inner wounds suppressed. 100 with Glenn. I don't know if they're saying 100 with me as in my inner wounds are suppressed, probably. True character matters. How you handle conflict reveals who you are. And then it says, she's a baby at 31, she'll learn.
First of all, I'm not the biggest fan of using age as a determining factor of whether somebody knows something or doesn't know something. I think it's pretty patronizing, but I'm going to choose to not feel patronized because that's somebody else's view.
Yeah.
I don't care. You know, I think a lot of people are missing the point in what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that you shouldn't or don't feel certain things. I'm not saying that you can go around acting like a complete a-hole to people and expect them to own their own response and be like, you're responsible. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you have the power to change how you feel. So that's your power. So if you go around expecting people to do things a certain way so that you feel a certain way, that's giving all of your power away. And it's just so blame gamey, you know? So you are within yourself. Like, I have not mastered it. Most of the people have not mastered it, but it can be done.
We talked a bit in the car about this and even at home where people talk about happiness as an inside job and we're all happy to talk about that. But it's the negative emotions we like to blame other people
100%. So it's like your happiness is a choice. All of it is a choice. It's all a choice. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel a certain way. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be compassionate to others. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is ultimately it's your choice how you feel.
Because
it's your power. It's a good thing.
Yeah, you are very empathetic and you are, it's because that kind of, and I know this person might not mean it this way, but that kind of sounds like you're not empathetic or you're not emotional or you've got a hard shell, which is not true because I guess you do have a hard shell to the general public, even when you first meet you. You're tough, you're in a tough sport, for example, you've been through a lot of tough things, but you're very soft and emotional too. And so it's not like you do get emotional when reading about someone else's parent passing away or so on. And so, yeah, we're not saying don't be emotional. We're not saying don't be empathetic. We're not saying don't have feelings. But if you want to own your happy feelings, also own your negative, because you do read about people talking about they did this and they did that, or negative. You very rarely hear people saying about so-and-so makes me so happy, because that's the inside job. Well, if you can own both emotions, then I think you're a better, like you say, you're a better chance of controlling your own life.
And then someone on your Facebook commented and summed it up perfectly. And it's a bit of a long one. I'm going to read it anyway. So she said, Annette said, shout out to Annette, you can influence how people feel, but not make people happy. You could yell at me and I could laugh or I could cry. It's the same yell. Same yell behind both responses. Our responses come from our own perceptions of the situation, based on our own feelings, beliefs, and values, mental state, emotional state, family history, education, skill set, self-awareness, tiredness, and our perceptions change over time as the things that guide our perceptions change, based on the same factors. So what I laugh about today might make me furious in a couple years time. Mili is spot on with her understanding of this, and this is a commonly held tenet in psychology. The confusion comes from a lack of understanding of this counterintuitive way of understanding what makes us feel a certain way about things. Often it's easier to not do the hard mental work of recognizing why we are responding with certain feelings, and then we blame the other person or the situation. Sometimes the influence of others is overwhelming. DV is a tough one as an example. People are unhappy and unsafe because they choose to stay in that kind of environment. They can choose to leave, yet many don't for a range of very complex reasons. If the abusive person hits me, that'll hurt because it physically hurts. It might also break my heart. That's my emotional response. I could go rage mode back. I choose my response. The classic example is Jews in horrific conditions during the Holocaust, yet some remained happy. Through joy is possibly a better word than happy. One survivor wrote the powerful story, The Happiest Man Alive, to reveal this paradoxical state of being and feeling.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And
it reminds me of the story you told about, was it Nelson Mandela? And he could have lived his whole life being mad and annoyed at all these people.
And trying to get back at them
when
he had power.
When he had the power, but he chose not to feel that way because you will not have that power over me.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to say is it's your choice.
Yeah. There's a quote that I'm sure I've shared numerous times on this podcast, maybe not in these sessions, but it's when you give people the power to feed you, you also give them the power to starve you. So, and that's how people end up in really bad relationships where someone gives them all this love and attention and then the relationship becomes secure, and then to control that person over time, they start to withdraw. You do something wrong and I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to make you fight back for my love. And then all of a sudden the power has shifted because they were feeding you, but when they starve you, it's like, oh, well, I want that back. And now it's, what do I have to do in order to get, so now I've got to behave a certain way to get your love or your attention. So, and I actually read in psychology that it's a reason, which I'm really bad at this, but it's a reason not to send kids to their room when they misbehave because you're segregating them from the family, which is how all of that feels. When you're not doing the right thing by society, you're going to be segregated. And that ties into that attachment disorder that we end up with, which is really interesting.
Well, speaking of children, like children do things that, and my children do things that I get infuriated by, but I'm the adult. So I need to change the way that I feel about that because they're children and they actually don't have much emotional regulation at this point in their time. I'm an adult and I should. And I don't always, and that's my choice. And I need to change those choices and I need to change the way that I feel about those things. So a lot of the time you'll see, you know, people go, oh, she's the adult. She should have changed something. Well, yeah. So in every situation in life, you have a choice. Otherwise, you could say to your child, you made me angry. Yeah. You made me angry. Like, that's a terrible thing to say to your child. And no one listening or
watching would think that's true. So if there's a situation, to take that one step further, where you've got the child and you've got the adult, and the adult must be responsible for their behaviour, well, then if you've got two adults, you both should be responsible for your behaviour.
100%.
So then if that were true, if we were all good at that, there'd never be conflict.
Yeah.
But that's not the reality, obviously.
So, and, you know, there have been many times that I've gotten super angry and, you know, lashed out, and then when I've calmed down, I always make it a point to tell the kids, like, nothing of what you did made me do that. I did that because I couldn't control myself. Because I never want to make them feel like, you know, I never want them to feel like
unloved or...
Well, yeah, like, you know, they need to tiptoe around me or blah, 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 because I'm in control of my emotions.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot with corporate groups where when you bring stuff home from work, and I know I've talked about it on here, but when you bring stuff home from work and you come in the house and you throw your bag on the floor and you kick the dog and you're just pissed off with the world, kids, particularly under the age of 11, often think that they've done something. Their idea is that mum or dad was happy out there. They just assume that because they're happy outside, kicking a footy or running around with their friends. And then when he or she walked in here, they became unhappy. That's how they perceive things. And so then they start to feel like they're the cause of you being unhappy, which when you think about it, might be how some people, including myself, have the belief system that people can make you feel something because that's been ingrained in you as a kid. When my dad definitely come home angry and kick things and be annoyed with the world. And then as kids, you subconsciously think, well, it's us. He's not happy here. So it's really an interesting look back at where things come from, I guess.
Like I had this experience with two boys who I look after in my job. I care for them and went to their house and one of them did something. And the other one kicked something and threw something and he picked up the Vegemite jar and he was just about to throw it at me. And because I was telling him, you got to stop doing that, mate. Like, please stop. Anyway, and he got a tomato sauce bottle. He chucked it at the wall and I was like, stop. And then he got the Vegemite jar and he picked it up and he went to peg it and I was like, don't you throw that. And then he like put it back in because I was like, I'm not copping a Vegemite jar, bro. Anyway, then later on we talked about it. And I was like, you can't throw things around. So you need to come and help me clean up the tomato sauce. And he was like, I'm not going to say names, but he said, oh, he can do it, as in his brother, because he made me angry. And I was like, I'm going to teach you this lesson. No one makes you angry. You made a choice to be angry based on something that he did. And it's completely your choice whether you feel angry and then angry enough to peg something at a wall and then threaten to peg something at a person that could really hurt them. That's your choice.
And you're not thinking the consequence.
No.
Which is how one punch happens, like fights in pubs and someone gets killed. And you think that thing that made you angry was enough for you to go to jail for?
No. So you want to ingrain it into children, like you are in charge of your own emotions, and it's really, really hard. And I know myself and most adults have not nailed that yet, but it's your power.
Yeah, and can I just I just want to recognise that it is difficult concept for people to understand and to get their heads around. And that's why we have these discussions. And it's obviously difficult because a lot of people are weighed in on it. I think in a way we sometimes hand off our power because it's easier. It's a below-the-line thinking model, but blame, deny and excuses. If I say you made me angry, well, that's not on me anymore. So I'm not happy that I was angry or that I was whatever the emotion I felt. But now I can say, well, it wasn't my fault. That's blame, deny, and excuses, which is classic below-the-line thinking. So, and you can't change anything because above-the-line thinking is all about ownership, responsibility, and it's not saying blame or fault. It's just saying I'm going to own how I responded, and it was inappropriate, and it had the capacity to make an argument or whatever the thing was. But I need to own that. So with us, like we've talked about this last time, but if either one of us has a behaviour that triggers the other, we have an onus, if we want to stay in a loving relationship, to change that behaviour, obviously. Like I think that's...
Because either one of us hasn't gotten to a point where we can block it out.
Yeah.
And because we love each other, we're not going to try and feed into that thing. Like we're not going around trying to be assholes because you can control your own feelings. Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that no one can make you feel anything. And you feel something based on like how I read in what that lady said, what Annette said, is everything that you feel, even initially, even your choice, subconsciously or consciously, is based on your upbringing. Because if I could make somebody feel something, then everybody would respond the same way to things.
Yeah, makes total sense. I got another one through, which was, I guess, tied into, in some way, what we're talking about here, but it was just around relationships in particular. And it said, brave questions to ask in your relationship, which I liked. And it was because what we're talking about here, we're talking about feelings, and a lot of our intimate feelings have a lot more triggers to them, particularly if you've been in tough relationships over your life or whatever. And so to me, it's important to do inner work on ourselves, which we're trying to do always, because we love each other enough that if this was ever to end, how would you process if it was because I just didn't do the work? Like that's crazy. So I do like talking about it because this came from Julia, who does message us a lot, and she, to be fair, I think she gave us feedback that I won't read it all because it's very long, but it's kind of what we've already talked about, where she didn't quite understand the concept of us being responsible and that people can make you feel a certain way. But yeah, if someone speaks to me a certain way or with a certain tone that can make me feel something. But that's most likely a trigger from something that happened when I was 7 years old and 10 years old and 15 years old, and I'm not processing the trigger, therefore I'm still responding to the thing. Because some people don't have any emotion to a thing. Oh, okay,
whatever. But it's like that Key and Peele episode with the perceptions, and they're texting each other, and one of them's like, "What?" But he's like, "Hey,"
because he's reading it in a tone.
He's reading it based on his thing.
Because he goes, "Do you want to go out and grab a drink later?" And his mate goes, "Yeah, whatever." He's sitting there going, "Yeah, whatever."
And he's like,
"Yeah, whatever."
Like that's your perception based on your thing. Like no one's doing anything to make you feel a thing.
Yeah. And so Julia sent me this through, which was at the end of that. But these are interesting questions. Maybe we'll explore these one day. But what is it like to be in a relationship with me right now? Not you think about that. Ask your partner. What is it like to be in a relationship with me right now? You probably want to do this when you're not triggered about something, because otherwise you might get answers you don't want.
You break up.
What's something you feel I haven't fully understood about you? And the third one was, what's something you see in me that I'm unwilling or resistant to see in myself? So I quite like those questions.
Yeah, I like them too.
Maybe there's something we'll play around with, not this episode just for constraint of time, but and I'm sure there are more of those. So I'll look at that post and go a little bit deeper into those, because one of those questions, or the first question, is just asking what it's like to be in a relationship with him. I listen to a podcast called The You Project, which I quite like, Craig Harper. And one of his big questions always in life is, what is the experience of me for other people? So in work, in business, in everything he does, in relationships, in his case, what is the experience of Craig? And in my case, what is the experience of Glenn? Because I walk around with a certain demeanour, which is my size and all that sort of stuff, and if I don't know people straight away. And then people can think that I'm arrogant or aggressive, which I'm not. And we've even had that feedback on one of the NGLs. Some of the posts I put up, because I use photos that were taken by a photographer that's mostly me in the Not Dead Yet shirt, and they say that they're really, they said something about they're almost like intimidating or aggressive photos, and I don't see that.
Neither do
You
I.
don't see that, but that's
Yeah.
what they're seeing. So then
Perception.
it's an interesting to ask, well, what's the experience of Glenn to other people? Which I've never really dug deep into that, but it's interesting. So that's the first question. And then the other two is, what's something about me that, I really could change, and what's something about me that I probably don't see in myself. So they're better than having conversations around, you always do this, or why did you say that, or that's a way better way of handling that.
Yeah.
I think anyway.
That's cool.
So maybe we should do some relationship ones. I shared a video the other day. I just want to talk about this quickly because I sometimes think I'd love to do podcasts where we bring other people in here, and we're told in this studio we might have the capacity to put people on a Zoom. And I've got a mate in Townsville, Ian, I like Ian's stuff. He's pretty tough. He's ex-infantry soldier. He's an ex-cage fighter. He runs Courage Training Centre in Townsville, which is a kickboxing MMA gym. And I shared a video which was around this guy saying that no matter what people do to me, I don't care. I just forgive them immediately. And the guy interviewing him was like, no matter what they do, no matter what they do. He says, what about karma? No, karma's on them. And I shared that and people were liking it. But then I did a video after and said, just to be clear, I'm not there because I struggle with forgiveness. I want karma to get you back. And then Ian kind of agreed with me and he said, I think you can continue. It's not I think if you can continue, it's not a problem. Having opposition, I'm okay with. Loyalty and honour, it's actually built around having defendable boundaries and war if you need to for closure. And he said, this is a bit I liked what he said because I believe this too. He said, there was a little devil in me and I like that part of me, to be honest. And I've said that with you where we all have a black piece to us or a piece to us. Like 95% of my life, and to be honest now yours because of being with me and how I publicly do everything, even though you were pretty public before, but it's even more so now, 95% of our lives is open. So we have to accept what comes our way, the good and the bad. And if you go back and watch that TikTok video about the neighbours, again, they did research on us to know who we were. But there's 5% that's not for everyone else. That's just for us, that you don't have to share with everyone else. And sometimes, we might judge a thing or a person or have an opinion about something that we would never talk about on a podcast, because for the podcast, it's not about being fake. It's about, is it helpful to people? Are there lessons to be learned? Because I'll do lessons learned even if they're tough on me. I'll do them publicly here because that's what I do. But I'm not just going to get on and rant and rave, and that's in our own time we might do that stuff.
Yeah. Just
because we're humans and you want to. So I do like that dark piece of me. I used to, years ago, when I first got out of the army even, and I was still kind of fighting, I used to have this attitude that I wanted to fight anyone and everyone over anything. Like I didn't care how small you did something to me, I would fight you over it. And I did talk with a psychologist about this where they said you dominate spaces, you have to own spaces that you're in, you're always ready to fight. And I used to have this fear that if you start to turn the other cheek and you start to be a little bit softer, or then people will take advantage of that and maybe you lose the capacity to be the fighter. And he said, no, that's not the case at all. You can always tap into that piece of you, but you don't have to be that person all the time.
Yeah.
And that's taught me to be a lot calmer around
Well,
situations.
think about just the other night with the neighbour. You chose to be calm in that situation.
Yeah.
And you chose, and then if you look back, because I took a few videos, and this guy just looks out of control, pretty stupid, to be honest. And
for those that haven't seen the TikTok, please go and watch it. But basically, this guy was not in the position that I think he could beat me in a fight, if I'm really honest.
Yeah, but he was making claims and he was calling you a dumb C and a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like all of these things. And then
all
like
over parking.
If we gave our power away, we would have gotten angry and there would have been a hell fight, do you know? And then we would have ended up in the lockup.
And he made a comment because, I will say this piece of the argument. He made a comment where he said something, and I said to him, are you threatening me? And he said, I'm not threatening you because I've looked you up and I know who you are. He goes, but I know that if you put one on me, you're going to be in a lot more trouble than if I put one on you. And that's true in that sense that because I have a boxing background, that even if we had not had personal control, which is the same thing we're talking about feelings, I guess, and we had done something, then that would have put us in more trouble because we have boxing backgrounds.
We wouldn't be here. We'd be in
and
the red
they
cliff
both knew that, him and his wife, and they were both trying to escalate us, knowing that. and we would have fallen straight into that trap if we didn't have some
100%.
emotional control.
But we were calm. There was a little piece of me that was like, you do not speak to people like that. But anyway, we didn't do anything. We just stayed calm. And I'm super proud of ourselves, actually, because he was like, their son was he was 19, I reckon.
The son was really good.
Yeah, so he was really, really good. But if it was a fight, like,
But I wasn't
he would have been
elevated at
crying
all.
for his parents in the street.
I honestly wasn't elevated by the situation
No.
because I felt in control, to tie back into what that psychologist told me years ago. I felt in control that if he did attack me, which he kind of threatened a few times, I was going to be okay.
Yeah.
But so I felt in control of that. Whereas people who don't get in fights regularly, which I'm guessing was him, he was really elevated.
And they try to scare you.
Yeah, in the fight or flight, and they get louder, and you see videos. If you go and do some looking, you see videos of big guys getting rolled all the time because they use their size to stand over people. Yeah. I at no stage tried to stand over him, but I was very comfortable that the situation was in control. Yeah. And having you there back me up doesn't hurt.
When we were young, we went out clubbing, and we were with one of our mates who did MMA at the time, and he's very, very good at it. And there was this guy who called me a nigger and just said really, really nasty things to me. And then we got into like a on the street screaming match, like our group versus his group. And then he starts getting loud, like this other guy last night. I'll bash you guys, going off, like simply just going off. He starts walking towards us thinking that we're going to retreat. And then my mate Zach just goes and just puts him in a headlock and puts him to sleep. Like, he didn't.
You don't know who you're dealing with.
Yeah. Zach wasn't angry. He wasn't trying to scare him because he knows he's comfortable with what he can do. And that's just the difference. He didn't have to use fear. He literally just walked up to this guy, put him in a headlock, put him to sleep, and laid him down.
You think about how many times in boxing gyms, because we live in boxing gyms, you don't see a lot of arrogance. You see people walking very confidently.
Yeah.
Fighters have a nice confidence about the way they walk. I remember the Jason Bourne movies, which I love. When Matt Damon was first doing that part, the producer and the directors, part of what they'd written into it was they told him to go and spend your time in a boxing gym, like for a year leading up to this movie, and watch how fighters move because they walk with a confidence, and we want Jason Bourne to walk with that confidence. And we do that. You and I both walk very confidently because we're not fearful in spaces we go into. And I'm not saying we can beat everyone in the room, but nor are we trying to prove that.
No.
And you go into boxing gyms, everyone's there to learn. They're professionals, they're Olympians.
Yeah.
Everyone just walks in the way they walk. Yeah. And that's one of the things I love about the sport is the confidence it gives people. One of the biggest questions I get asked in personal development is how do I increase my confidence? Take up a martial art. Go to a boxing gym. Like, be around people that are developing themselves and that are giving you some physical skills to feel confident enough in any situation and not go around looking for fights. And that was the other key, that this guy doesn't really know how to fight, because you don't go around threatening people. Like, fighters just don't do that because they've got nothing to prove.
Nah.
So they're comfortable if it goes there, but I'm not trying to go there.
But also, fighters know that you don't know who can and can't fight.
Yeah.
That you just don't know.
Yeah.
So.
And I've seen that many times.
Yeah.
So one other lesson, if I want to add in for this episode, one other lesson was just around entitlement. Because in that argument, when I say argument, the discussion happening on TikTok, which is blowing up, there's a lot of people about this is your side of the street and their side of the street, and curbside etiquette and renters versus people that own houses. And it's all just absolute garbage, really. And we're not arguing, but people are arguing. Like, we're just pointing out facts every now and then, not parked in front of their house, not.
It's parked on there's a fence thing that beyond the fence is a footpath that
and then a big Energex box.
Yeah. You're parked in front of the Energex box, but just like left of that is a footpath that goes through to the AFL field. It's nobody's house.
No,
Public land.
But yeah, people just get on, and then the woman saying that we're just renters, like that makes something different.
You're renters.
And someone else wrote in there on the comments that, well, because you pay rent, you don't pay rates, and therefore you shouldn't have access to the street the way everyone else does. Well, you do. That's how your rubbish bins get emptied. Like, you pay your rates via your rent.
But also, we pay a lot of tax. We get taxed a lot.
Plenty. But it's just a crazy argument that people get so fired up and so entitled around street parking. I had no idea.
One guy wrote, if you had 3 cars parked in my street, I'd burn them all. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Like, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it, mate. You'd bitch and moan in your own house, and then you'd shut up.
That's what social media is. It gives people the capacity just to say stupid stuff. And you've got to learn, like, it got to the stage on this TikTok where I said to Millie this morning, I'm not even going to bother looking at it because there's too many comments.
It's hectic.
You can't. So I've just rolled through them in the notifications and read them there. And if one caught my attention, I'd click on it because some of them are big. And one lady wrote a novel that was so irrelevant to anything in the conversation.
I know.
But you've just got to let that stuff go.
Yeah.
And I understand how famous people. I remember Joe Rogan saying that when he, in the early days in particular, when he was still big, but he was doing everything himself. And even now, when he posts stuff or his YouTube, he doesn't read any of the comments because someone his size is just getting bombed all the time, good and bad. So just let people have their opinions.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, that's probably a good thing to do. Just let people feel what they want to feel. That's on them. And then we focus on what's us. And again, we're not trying to be assholes to people. That's not what this is about. But my thing is that because we're in personal development doesn't mean that we're going to turn the other cheek every time someone behaves in a way we don't like, aggressive and at no stage in that argument did I leave our front yard or our side of the street. I just sat there. I didn't cross the road. I didn't try and engage in the behaviour. He kept coming back and forward over towards me, but I wasn't going to go over there and put myself in a situation where the police or anyone could say, well, you progress this. Because if I had walked on the street, it would have had to progress because he'd put himself in that situation. So I did him the favour of not doing that, but also myself the favour as fighters.
Yeah.
And again, this is not to say we're tough people and all that sort of stuff, but I just don't like the idea that you should back down or you should
stand
turn
your ground,
yeah.
but you don't have to get angry and you don't have to threaten people and you don't have to call people a dumb C and you don't have to go there. It's good lessons learned that you have your emotional control and you stay monotone, but you're not going to just be like, okay, you know what, I'll move my car because it's not in front of your house, but I'm going to move it anyway because you feel some sort of way about it.
For everyone listening, I hope you've taken something out. I think this adds to the feelings conversation.
Yeah.
I hope we've added a bit more depth to it and a bit more understanding. I think sometimes we can both come across as pretty hard and stuff. We're not. We're just matter of fact when we talk about this stuff. So we are actually both quite emotional people at different times.
Very, very compassionate people. Empathetic.
We're trying to give you your power back.
Yeah, 100%. It's not meant to be a negative in any way.
Next episode, we're going to answer a few questions because they're a bit rando, some of the questions that come through. And by that I mean they're good, so keep sending them, but random in the sense that it's not like we can always put them into, all right, these are all about this. They're all over the shop. So we will chat about those on the next episode of Mayhem Monday.
Have a great week.